Welcome back to Baby Kingle. Now, as you know, every Monday, ghost video. But what is the actual origin of ghosts? Where did they come from? What was the first sighting? And where did the word ghost even come from? Well, this video, I'm going to go through a timeline of the ghost's history and origin. Ghost sightings and stories first began in Mesopotamia and ancient Greece, with the first story ever being written by Pliny the Younger, a Roman statesman and author between the first ever century, so 1 to 100 AD. Pliny said a ghost haunted him in his house in Athens, and it was a man with a long grey beard who was chained by some rusty chains, and he was heard often wandering around the house, and Pliny even says in some of his stories that he's seen him. So he'd be writing his story, and then this ghostly figure would come to him. Now we're looking at a poltergeist, the first ever ghost to cause a physical disturbance, and it took place in a farmhouse in Germany in 856. The family said that this ghost would often torment them by throwing stones and lighting the fire that was in their front room. Now, 856 is around the same time as when the myth of Ubisate was going on in Japan, and I've also mentioned this in my Okigara Suicide Forest video. So just to recap over that a bit, Ubisate is when the Japanese people would take their elderly to a mountain or forest and leave them there to die due to the struggle and starvation going back on at home. This meant that it was one less mouth to feed. But these elderly people were said to come back as spirits and roam where they died, i.e. the forest and the mountains, and they were called Yuri, and they were demon ghosts, which is similar to what a poltergeist is. It's a demonic spirit. So we've got 856, and then that was from 900 to 1000 AD. So that area now is when these ghosts are starting to become that little more demonic and get maybe a bit more energy or powerful, whatever. But the next one now is a few famous ghosts. Before I mention the famous ghosts that we all know, which happened around the 16th century onwards, the word ghost changed its meaning in the 14th century to mean what it does today, a disembodied spirit of a dead person. The word ghost in English came from the Proto-Indo-European and Proto-Germanic language. The word originally meant life, spirit, agitation, fear, and breath. Now in the 16th century, a well-known person now is a ghost, and people are seeing it about where it died. It is in England, and it's one of Henry VIII's wives, his second, Anne Boleyn. From 1536, when she was beheaded, she has been seen all around London, specifically the Tower of London, her childhood home, and the Hever Castle. Benjamin Franklin is also another one. He was seen in the late 19th century, and he was seen around the library in Philadelphia, which links to another video I've done about a guy called William H. Mumler, and specifically a picture he captured of Abraham Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln has had many sightings over the years, all dating back to the 1860s, and this is when William H. Mumler first began his spirit photography. So we've got Benjamin Franklin coming in, Abraham Lincoln, people are seeing him as well, and now this William Mumler is capturing spirits. Now go back to my video that I done, my very first Baby Kingle video, and I talk about all that. But spiritualism started getting really big in the 19th century in America. 2 decades prior, in the 1840s, spiritualism really came about. It first started and became fashionable in upstate New York. Spiritualism is the communication of the undead, it's talking to the spirits. So you can see how William H. Mumler took off due to people going to him and getting pictures with ghosts. It was like he could just say, yeah, come on in, sit down, and I'll call a ghost over and you can get a nice little picture. So people were just eating it up, they were loving it, due to the spiritualism becoming such a fashionable thing in the mid to late 19th century. And now it's just a snowball effect now. And this is where we come to the Ouija board in 1890. So it started off with people in the 1840s getting to know, to communicate with ghosts. Then they started seeing Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln. People were getting the pictures taken with them, and now the Ouija board comes about where you can actually talk to spirits properly. I've also covered the history of the Ouija board in a previous video, and that's where it started as a family game, and then it became something a bit more darker and demonic later in the years, around the 1940s and 1930s time. So we started off in the 1st century, then to the 9th, and then to the 9th and 10th, and then we've gone to the 14th, the 16th, and then the 19th, and now we're finishing off in the 21st. So ghosts now, I think people are just trying to get evidence for them. Back then you can see, in specifically the 19th century when spiritualism first started, it was more of a fun kind of communication game. Whereas now there's all this high-tech equipment, stuff that people can't afford, and it's became a thing of trying to get evidence and prove to people that ghosts exist. So it's completely different from when it first started, spiritualism. And shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Most Haunted all started in the early 2000s. So the 21st century on the ghost timeline is all the ghost shows, trying to prove they exist and dedicating their lives to try and find evidence of something they might actually never see. But like I was saying previously, the 19th century was a bit of fun, get your mates round, do an Ouija board, do a bit of spiritualism, and that was it. It wasn't anything greater. People didn't know as much as they do now with the spiritual world and the kind of myths and legends behind it. But I hope you did enjoy this video anyway. If you want me to do any more kind of origin timeline stories of where stuff began, I will happily do so. And if you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and check this one out while you're here, and follow me while I hunt for paranormal sightings and events that are beyond belief.